Now we come to the first sutta of the Khandha-samyutta, chapter 22 of Samyutta Nikaya, 22.1. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Bhagas at the Sumaragira in the Besakala Grove, the deer park. Then the householder, by the way, this is page 853. Then the householder, Nakula Pitta, approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him and sat down to one side. Stop here for a moment. This man, Nakula Pitta, is an old man, and his wife is called Nakula Mata. Pitta and Mata means father and mother. So the son is called Nakula. So he is known as Nakula's father. His wife is known as Nakula's mother. And both of them, husband and wife, are a very loving couple. And according to the later books, they say that Nakula Pitta and Nakula Mata had been parents of the Buddha for many lifetimes. This is just a speculation. Then Nakula Pitta said to the Buddha, I am old, Venerable Sir, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, come to the last stage, afflicted in body, often ill. I rarely get to see the Blessed One and the monks worthy of esteem. Let the Blessed One exhort me, Venerable Sir. Let him instruct me, since that would lead to my welfare and happiness for a long time. The Buddha said, so it is, householder, so it is. This body of yours is afflicted, weighed down and encumbered. If anyone carrying around this body were to claim to be healthy even for a moment, what is that due to other than foolishness? Therefore, householder, you should train yourself thus. Even though I am afflicted in body, that means sick in body, my mind will be unafflicted. Thus should you train yourself. Stop here for a while. So here the Buddha says, it's true, your body is old and weak, often ill and all that. But the Buddha said, if anybody can claim that he is healthy, he is a fool, because actually our body is so unreliable. When you think that you are healthy, maybe cancer is already starting in your body. 10 years later only, it breaks out into a lump, then only you realize. So, nobody is healthy, because any time we can die. Then the Buddha said, you should train yourself in this way. Even though I am sick in body, my mind will not be sick. So you see, there are two aspects in us, the body and the mind. The body, we don't have much control. The body, it grows old. We cannot stop it from growing old. And then when it becomes sick, we also cannot stop it from becoming sick. But the Buddha says, your mind is within your control. So don't allow your mind to be sick. Then the householder, Nakula Pitta, having delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's statement, rose from his seat, and having paid homage to the Blessed One, keeping him on his right, he approached the Venerable Sariputta. Stop here for a moment. You see this Indian tradition, whenever he wants to take leave of the Buddha, he keeps the Buddha on his right side. That's a mark of respect. The Indian tradition, that's why when you listen to the Dhamma, we wear our robe covering the left shoulder, but we expose our right shoulder. That's a mark of respect. Also, when we sit in line, the monks, you see, the right side is always towards a more senior monk out of respect. So that's why the senior monk always sits on the right. So when he wants to take leave of the Buddha, also he always keeps the Buddha on his right and slowly walks away. He doesn't turn around with the back facing the Buddha. Having paid homage to the Venerable Sariputta, he sat down to one side. And the Venerable Sariputta then said to him, householder, your faculties are serene, your facial complexion is pure and bright. Did you get to hear a Dhamma talk today in the presence of the Blessed One? Why not, Venerable Sir? Just now I was anointed by the Blessed One with the ambrosia of a Dhamma talk. Sometimes this ambrosia is translated as the nectar of the Dhamma talk. With what kind of ambrosia of the Dhamma talk did the Blessed One anoint you, householder? And then, here, Venerable Sir, I approach the Blessed One, and the householder Nakulapita repeats his entire conversation with the Buddha. It was with the ambrosia of such a Dhamma talk, Venerable Sir, that the Blessed One anointed me. And Venerable Sariputta asked him, didn't it occur to you, householder, to question the Blessed One further as to how one is afflicted in body and afflicted in mind, and how one is afflicted in body but not afflicted in mind? And he said, we would come from far away, Venerable Sir, to learn the meaning of this statement from the Venerable Sariputta. It would be good indeed if the Venerable Sariputta would clear up the meaning of this statement. Let's stop here for a moment. So, Venerable Sariputta asked him, why didn't you ask the Buddha to explain what do you mean by sick in body and sick in mind? And then secondly, sick in body but not sick in mind. Then he said, he admitted he forgot to ask. He said he'd be willing to walk a long way to listen to Venerable Sariputta's explanation. And Venerable Sariputta said, then listen and attend closely, householder, I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, the householder Nakulapita replied. The Venerable Sariputta said this, how, householder, is one afflicted in body and afflicted in mind? Here, householder, the uninstructed worldling, who is not a seer of the noble ones, and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, who is not a seer of superior persons, and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, regards form or body as self, or self as possessing form, or form as in self, or self as in form. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Sariputta says, the instructed or unlearned ordinary person, the unlearned ordinary person is the Putujana, who is not the seer of the noble ones. Unlearned ordinary worldling, he does not like to associate with Aryans, noble ones. And so because of that, he is unskilled in the Aryan Dhamma. He is not trained in the Aryan Dhamma. So he regards the body as a self, or self as possessing body. That means I am body, or body is mine, or I am in the body, or the body is inside me. He lives obsessed by the notions, I am form. I think I use the word body, it's more meaningful. He lives obsessed by the notions, I am body, body is mine. As he lives obsessed by these notions, that body of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of body, there arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. Similarly, regards feeling as self, perception as self, etc., volition as self, consciousness as self, etc. In other words, he regards these aggregates as the self, or self as possessing any one of these aggregates, or the aggregate is in the self, or the self is in the aggregates. And then he lives obsessed by the notions, I am the aggregates are mine. As he lives obsessed by these notions, those aggregates of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of the aggregates, there arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. It is in such a way, householder, that one is afflicted or sick in body and sick in mind. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, the ordinary person, he associates the five khandhas, the body and the mind, with the self. He thinks these five aggregates are me or mine, or I am in the five aggregates, or the five aggregates are inside me. But these five aggregates, body and mind, is in the world, and everything in the world is changing. I think it is mentioned somewhere that we can see the body changing very fast, but we don't see the mind changing even faster. So when the body changes, for example, we grow old, we look ourselves at our face in the mirror, year by year we grow older, becomes uglier, the body becomes weaker, we become sick more often. We are very lucky already if we don't get a major sickness like cancer. So many people are getting cancer nowadays. So because of change in the body, and not only your own body, those you associate with yourself, like my son, my daughter. If anything happens to your son or your daughter because of impermanent nature of the world, then you suffer. For example, your son gets cancer, or your daughter gets cancer, or your mother gets cancer, and then you suffer because you associate that body, that other person, to be mine, I and mine. So there's the ordinary worldling. The ordinary worldling regards the body and the mind, whether his own or his beloved ones, to be I and mine. So when change comes, and change must come, in this world, nothing ever stands still. It's constantly changing. That's the nature of the world. So when change comes, and we want to hold on to happiness, we don't want it to change. And then when change comes, we suffer. That is how a person is sick in body and sick in mind. Sick in body is like your body changes or somebody else's body changes. And sick in mind is when you think about it, then you have mental suffering. In addition to the body suffering, you have mental suffering. For example, say your son last night went to the karaoke or somewhere and got into a fight and got killed. And then you suffer mental pain, and then when you think about it, one thought becomes 10 thoughts. 10 thoughts become 100 thoughts. 100 thoughts becomes 1,000 thoughts. This is the nature of the mind. The Buddha calls it papancha, the tendency for proliferation of the mind. So when you think so much, then the suffering becomes unbearable. Some people, because somebody they love has passed away, they become even mad, go out of their mind, deranged. On the other hand, say like somebody becomes sick, suddenly he realizes that he got cancer. Then the cancer, the sickness of the body gives him physical pain that is sick in the body. But then when he thinks about it, that his life, the doctor says it's only 6 months more. He has 6 months more to live. And he thinks about it, then he gets mental suffering also. So that is being sick in the body and sick in the mind. But afterwards we'll hear about the Arya. And how householder is one afflicted in body but not afflicted in mind, or sick in body but not sick in mind. Here householder, the instructed noble disciple who is a seer of the noble ones and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, who is a seer of superior persons and is skilled and disciplined in their Dhamma, does not regard form as body as self, or self as possessing body, or body as in the self, or self as in the body. He does not live obsessed by the notion, I am body, body is mine. As he lives unobsessed by these notions, that body of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of body, there do not arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. He does not regard feeling as self, or self as possessing feeling, or feeling as in self, or self as in feeling. Similarly, in regards to perception and volition and consciousness, he does not regard the aggregates as the self, or self as possessing the aggregates, or the aggregates as in the self, or self as in the aggregates. He does not live obsessed by the notion, I am the aggregates, or aggregates are mine. As he lives unobsessed by these notions, those aggregates of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of the aggregates, there do not arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. It is in such a way, householder, the one is sick in body, but not sick in mind. This is what the Venerable Sariputta said. Elated the householder Nakulapita, delighted in the Venerable Sariputta statement. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the learned Aryan disciple who sees Aryans and learns the Aryan Dhamma and trains himself in the Aryan Dhamma, then he realizes that the body and the mind is something that is impermanent, and because it is changing all the time, it is not the self, it is beyond our control. So how can it be ourself? It does not even belong to us, because if something belongs to us, we have control over it. If money is mine, I can use it as I wish. But this body is not yours, because the Buddha says you have no control over it. When it's aging, can you ask it to stop aging? You cannot. When it's sick, can you ask it to get well? You cannot. Beyond your control. Even the mind also. The mind works in a way. Sometimes those thoughts that you don't want, you don't think you should be thinking certain thoughts, you start thinking those thoughts out of habit. Sometimes you don't want to be angry, but you get angry because you find it difficult to control your mind. So the Buddha says that's why the body and mind is not yours. So the Aryan disciple, he dissociates himself from the body and the mind. He does not associate, he does not identify himself with the body and the mind. Although he still has a self, he has the feeling that the self exists, but he can see clearly because the body and the mind is changing all the time. It cannot be I or mine. So he does not identify with the body and the mind as the self, but he still has a self. But at least when he can do that, then he becomes an Arya. Then when the body changes or the mind changes, the body is sick, but the mind, he does not grieve, he does not affect his mind, because once a person understands the Dhamma, then he understands that the world goes in a certain pattern. You cannot change the world. You cannot change the world. So we have to accept whatever that comes. We just accept and do the best that we can. We can. Whatever comes now is a result of the past. The past karma, the past conditions have created the conditions today. That we cannot do anything about. What we can do is to live skillfully so that the future is better, right? So understanding that whatever comes now we cannot change. That is a result of past conditions. Then we just accept it. When we accept it, then there is no mental dukkha. The mental dukkha comes from thinking. When you don't accept it, then you keep thinking, and your suffering multiplies. But you accept whatever comes as something that you cannot change due to previous conditions. So you accept whatever comes along, and then you realize that you can only try to condition the future. So now you change your life to lead a very skillful life, so that tomorrow and the day after you become a happier person. But whatever we do now, it will influence our future. So because of that, because we don't refuse to accept, we accept whatever comes, then we don't have that mental torture that comes from thinking about it. It's only when we don't accept, and then we start thinking and we start regretting and we start all that, and then it multiplies and multiplies until you cannot sleep, until you go out of your mind. The second sutta, 22.2. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sakyans, where there was a town of the Sakyans named Devadaha. Then a number of westward bound monks approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there. And the Buddha said, Have you taken leave of Sariputta monks? No, Venerable Sir. Then take leave of Sariputta monks. Sariputta is wise. He is one who helps his brothers in the holy life. Yes, Venerable Sir, those monks replied. Let's stop here for a moment. You see, these monks, they are leaving, so they came to inform the Buddha. And because the Buddha has so much respect for Venerable Sariputta, considers Venerable Sariputta as his right-hand disciple, so he told the monks, have you informed Venerable Sariputta that you are leaving? And they said, not yet. They said, you better go and inform Venerable Sariputta. On that occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was sitting not far from the Blessed One in a cassia bush. Then those monks, having delighted and rejoiced in the Blessed One's statement, rose from their seats and paid homage to the Blessed One. Then keeping him on their right, they approached the Venerable Sariputta. They exchanged greetings with the Venerable Sariputta, and when they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, they sat down to one side and said to him, "Friend Sariputta, we wish to go to the western province in order to take up residence there. We have taken leave of the teacher." Stop here for a moment. So you see, Venerable Sariputta what we call the Tai Si Heng, elder Dhamma brother, eldest Dhamma brother. And here they call him friend, Avuso. During the Buddha's time, all the monks address each other as Avuso. It's translated as friend or reverend. But later, when the Buddha was about to enter Nibbana, then he saw that in the future, monks would not have respect for each other. So he instructed the Sangha that junior monks should call senior monks as Bhante. And senior monks can address junior monks either as Avuso or just call them directly by their name. Then Venerable Sariputta told them, "Friends, there are wise Katyas. Katyas are the warrior caste. Wise Brahmins, wise householders, and wise ascetics who question a monk when he has gone abroad. For wise people, friends, are inquisitive. What does your teacher say? What does he teach? I hope that you, Venerable Ones, have learned the teachings well, grasped them well, attended to them well, reflected on them well, and penetrated them well with wisdom, so that when you answer, you will state what has been said by the Blessed One, and will not misrepresent him in what is contrary to fact, so that you will explain in accordance with the Dhamma, and no reasonable consequence of your assertion would give grounds for criticism." Let's stop here for a moment. So here, the Venerable Sariputta asked them, in case other people ask you, what does your teacher say? What does your teacher teach? I hope you can answer. Just putting it in a nice way, instead of telling them. When people ask you, what is the Buddha's teachings? You know how to explain or not? So when a monk goes away from the teacher, he's on his own. So he's representing the Sangha. So he should be able to project a good image. That's why in the Vinaya rules, if a monk has not attained 5 vasa, he is considered a novice monk, new monk, Navaka Bhikkhu, a new monk. So according to the Vinaya rules, a new monk is not allowed to go here, go there by himself. He's supposed to go with a senior monk, more than 10 years old. Because if a junior monk goes here, goes there by himself, he does not behave well, then he will project a bad image of the Sangha, and especially of his teacher. People will say, "Oh, this fellow is such and such a Venerable's disciple. See how he behaves. That's the way his teacher teaches him." So, in strict monasteries, if a junior monk wants to go, for example, to visit his parents, even if he goes overseas, a senior monk will accompany him. So a lot of monks, they are not learned in the Vinaya. So sometimes when you try to train them in this way, they get annoyed. They think they are just like earlier we read the sutta about the monks. They think the senior monks can go and associate with lay people. I also can go and associate with lay people, and then they said, "We would come from far away, friend, to learn the meaning of this statement from the Venerable Sariputta. It would be good indeed if the Venerable Sariputta would clear up the meaning of this statement." "Then listen and attend closely, friends, I will speak." "Yes, friend," those monks replied. The Venerable Sariputta said this: "There are, friends, wise Katyas, wise Brahmins, wise householders, and wise ascetics who question a monk when he has gone abroad. For wise people, friends, are inquisitive. What does your teacher say? What does he teach? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer. Our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust. When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise, Katyas, etc., who will question you further, for wise people are inquisitive. In regard to what does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer, our teacher, friends, teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, the removal of desire and lust for feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, Sariputta says, if anybody asks, you should say, the Buddha teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition and mind. That means not to be attached to body and mind. When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise, Katyas, etc., who will question you further, for wise people are inquisitive. Having seen what danger does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer thus. If, friends, one is not devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving in regard to body, then with the change and alteration of body, there arises in one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. Similarly, if, friends, one is not devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving in regard to feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, then with the change and alteration of the aggregates, there arise in one sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. Having seen this danger, our teacher teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Sariputta further explained that the Buddha teaches the removal of desire for the five aggregates because the five aggregates are going to change because they are impermanent. Their nature is to change. So when they change and you are attached to them, then you will experience suffering. When you have answered thus, friends, there may be wise, Katyas, etc., who will question you further, for wise people are inquisitive. Having seen what benefit does your teacher teach the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness? Being asked thus, friends, you should answer thus. If, friends, one is devoid of lust, desire, affection, thirst, passion and craving in regard to body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, then with the change and alteration of the aggregates, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair do not arise in one. Having seen this benefit, our teacher teaches the removal of desire and lust for body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. Stop here again. So here he says, he should explain to them the benefit is if we don't attach to the five aggregates, then when they change, then we will not experience suffering. If, friends, one who enters and dwells amidst unwholesome states could dwell happily in this very life without vexation, despair and fever, and if with the breakup of the body after death he could expect a good destination, then the Blessed One would not praise the abandoning of unwholesome states. But because one who enters and dwells amidst unwholesome states dwells in suffering in this very life with vexation, despair and fever, and because he can expect a bad destination with the breakup of the body after death, the Blessed One praises the abandoning of unwholesome states. Stop here for a moment. So here he explains further. He says the Buddha tells us to abandon unwholesome states because they give us suffering in this very life and the future life. If, friends, one who enters and dwells amidst wholesome states could dwell in suffering in this very life with vexation, despair and fever, and if with the breakup of the body after death he could expect a bad destination, then the Blessed One would not praise the acquisition of wholesome states. But because one who enters and dwells amidst wholesome states dwells happily in this very life without vexation, despair and fever, and because he can expect a good destination with the breakup of the body after death, The Blessed One praises the acquisition of wholesome states. This is what the Venerable Sariputta said. Elated, those monks delighted in the Venerable Sariputta statement. So in the end, the Venerable Sariputta says that the Buddha encourages us to cultivate wholesome states because we will not suffer. Instead, we will experience happiness in this life and in the future life. So the Buddha is teaching us to cultivate those things that will give us happiness in this life and the future life, and to avoid those things that will give us suffering in this life and the future life. That is the standard. So sometimes people don't understand. They think the Buddha says don't attach to anything. If you attach to anything, it will give you suffering. So meditation, the bliss of jhana also you should not enjoy. The Buddha never said that. The Buddha said if it leads to suffering, then you should not enjoy it. The Buddha says there are two types of happiness. The Buddha says very clearly in the sutta, there are two types of happiness. One happiness is the happiness from sensual pleasures, from sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touch and thoughts. And those happiness that you experience from sensual contact through the six senses, whenever you enjoy them, there's a tendency to crave for it. There's always a tendency to crave for it. So when you crave for it and you can't get it because everything is impermanent, one day you may not get it, then you will suffer. But on the other hand, the Buddha says like the bliss from meditation, the Buddha says he encourages his disciples to enjoy it because firstly, those states, the mind is so strong that there is no tendency to crave for that bliss of jhana, or meditative absorption. And furthermore, the Buddha says, when you constantly dwell in the states of meditative absorption, you gain four advantages. The four stages of Aryahood, the four fruits of Aryahood, Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin, and Arahanthood. So the Buddha never said that you should not attach to anything. The Buddha only says, if you attach to something and it leads to suffering, don't attach. But if you attach to something and it gives you happiness, go ahead. Any questions or remarks? That is from seeing the Dhamma clearly. When you study the Dhamma more, and then when we study the Dhamma, unfortunately, you may not be able to understand because your mind is clogged, covered by five hindrances. So if you clear your mind of the five hindrances, then when we learn the Dhamma, we can understand much better. For example, I mentioned before, like the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. Those monks, because they had attained the four jhanas, and they listened to the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, all five monks, disciples of the Buddha, all attained arahanthood. But for most of us, because we have not attained the four jhanas, when we listen to that same sutta, we are not going to become an arahant. But if you can become a stream enterer, that is excellent already. It's excellent. So coming back to your question, so if you don't want to become sick in mind, then you have to go through this training in the spiritual path. Training in the Noble Eightfold Path is basically a training in Sila, Samadhi and Panya. Moral conduct means keeping your precepts, concentration from meditation, and wisdom from learning the suttas. And it takes time. You cannot expect you study it for 3 months and you're going to become liberated.
talk about myself, really meditate. Sometimes we get into a very calm state, maybe other times when we sit, we cannot get into that. Somehow we get agitated, we still crave for that peace that comes. So for me, I'm attached to that always longing for peace that comes during meditation. Is that craving?
Yes, that is craving, and that is putting your mind in the past already. When you think of the past and you want to repeat that state, that means your mind is going to the past. But in meditation, your mind should be in the present. Stay with your object. Don't go and think about the past. If you go and think about the past, you are not in the present. So how can you progress? You must not think of the past and you must not think of the future. Now, because of thinking of the past, you think, oh, in the future I want to get this state again. So you are going between your past and the present and the future. So the Buddha says, only stay with the present. Don't have any ideas, any concepts. Just stay with the present, with your object. One thing you must realize, meditation is very difficult. So it takes many years of practice to tame the mind. And even many years of practice, for most people, you still can't tame the mind because you haven't let go. As you meditate, if you want to progress, you must let go of your attachments. So then only you can. Because those things that come up to disturb you in your mind are all your attachments. If they were not attachments, they would not surface in your mind. For example, you had that experience, then you are attached to it, so you want to repeat it. So it's a disturbance to your mind. So it's a path of renunciation, path of letting go. But one thing I wanted to mention is that when you look through the suttas, you find that the Buddha stress on mindfulness of the body. Mindfulness of the body. And for quite some time, I could not understand why the Buddha talked about mindfulness of the body. And then recently, I've come to the opinion that when you are mindful of your body, then the mind does not run away. Does not run away. So, for example, when we are sitting in meditation, and the mind starts to wander, go here, go there. You forgot that you are sitting in meditation. The moment you remember you are sitting here in meditation, your mind stops wandering, comes back. Right? So the point is if you want your mind not to wander, the Buddha says you've got to be mindful of the body. But when we are sitting, it's hard to be mindful of the body. For example, the Buddha says anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath, is actually a meditation on mindfulness of the body, because the breath is considered a breath body. The breath goes in and the breath goes out. That is considered a body. But as you meditate slowly, the breath becomes finer and finer and finer, so that it's very hard to observe the breath. Then your mind will start to wander. Now one way to bring it back is to move your fingers. Move your fingers lightly. Say, for example, your right finger, and then your left finger, then your right finger, and your left finger. At the same time, if you want, you can do chanting. Right? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa, like that. So you synchronize your chanting with your movement of your thumb. And this movement of the thumb will keep your mind from straying. The moment you stop moving your thumb, because the mind is weak, if you continue chanting, very soon you get pulled away already. So it's a good practice. For example, when you lie down, you feel you're very tired in the afternoon. You need to lie down. But you're afraid if you lie down, you're going to sleep for a long time. You can do the same thing. You move. For example, if you lie down near a clock, and you hear the clock going tick-tock, and then you can synchronize your finger movement with the tick-tock. You tick the right finger, tock, left finger, Take 5 fingers. As long as you are conscious of your body, the mind does not slide off into a dream state. Because our mind, as you grow older, the mind becomes weaker and weaker. So the moment we lie down, it's very easy to fall asleep. So if you are mindful of the body in this way, so if you are doing anapanasati and you find you are not progressing, you can switch to this movement of your thumb. And you coordinate it with chanting. If you don't want to chant Namo Tassa, you can chant any other thing. For example, Araham, 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 or Buddho, Buddho. This is one of the things to try out. Those of you who have the book, I suggest when you go back either at night or the next day, whenever you find some free time, go through the suttas. Those that we went through today, if you don't understand, you go through, and then tomorrow you can ask. And then tomorrow you try to read the suttas that are coming up. That's coming up at night, so that you are prepared. So that when I go through the suttas, if there's something you don't understand, you can question. So this is the best time to understand the suttas. And you're very lucky you have the book. Try to read it as much as you can. I have to do homework every day, so you also should do some homework. How to transfer merit.